Well, I guess my takeoff point here is going to try to be the irreducibility of consciousness. And
how do you define consciousness, first of all? That way we're on the same page.
That's one of the more mysterious things that we're encountering right now. Mayla, sweetie, I'm on the phone real quick. That's my daughter, sorry. Consciousness is one of those things that is a mysterious thing for us to try to define. And in fact, it is kind of like the holy grail of both neurobiology and philosophical studies, is to try to find a causative mechanism for how physical processes are able to produce this rich and multivalent consciousness. And
I wholeheartedly disagree.
Well, there's been a number of different attempts. We've had, the Churchlands. We've had people like Antonio Damasio. We've had the Daniel Dennett with his eliminative, reductionism. We've had John Searle breaking it into different ontological categories. We've had some classical philosophers like Wittgenstein that point out that content is.
So let's zero in here a little bit, okay?
Sure.
Bring you kind of where we live, or at least where I live on it. I don't know where you are on it. Sorry, I'm talking to V. So where I'll start with is we know what consciousness is not. We can identify when someone is unconscious or when a thing is not conscious. We can also determine that consciousness requires a brain, right? So you move from there.
That's a philosophical position, but I will
go with
it.
Oh, well, otherwise I'd ask you, can you give me an example of something that's conscious without a brain?
The thing is that anything that is observable is always going to have to be measured by one centralized subjectivity, which in fact is, once again, irreducible.
Okay, what do you mean by irreducible? Because I can think of a lot of things that change from brain damage in the way a person behaves and reacts.
Yes. So, you're absolutely right.
So what is irreducible about it?
Okay, give an example here. Sure. You were talking to a gentleman a couple of calls ago, and we were trying to, I believe your partner there was trying to provide a kind of explanation of pain and reducible to actual physical, causations that are found within the nervous system. Now, the example that was given was a person that actually lacks the ability to experience by some mutation or deformity or so accident. They cannot experience physical pain. Yet, as you put it, they feel a kind of, what you had defined earlier as a kind of terror, a sort of anticipation of what the possible future might hold, and types of pains that I am not even capable of receiving.
Well,
now that is a continental position and is really fascinating. It might sound a little bit like a word salad, like in the way that Jordan Peterson put. That's kind of the problem with continentalists, is because we're trying to say something that is so unbelievably simple.
Okay.
But in the actual rendering of it, I have to put it in the language that conforms to these kind of epistemic, skeptical categories that actually are setting up the conditions in advance that would deny any evidence of God whatsoever.
Well, we're not trying to deny the evidence of God. You understand that, right?
No,
we're trying to evaluate it.
Yes, and in our evaluation, we want to actually, if we want to be good skeptics, then we need to hold our own methods accountable by the same standard.
Agreed.
This is something that Bertrand Russell came up with this. Well, he didn't come up with it. He reformulated it. But you actually find this also in ancient forms of skepticism in the West, namely with the schools of Pyrrho, but also
David,
in the East. You find that in the East.
Hey, David, I feel like we're moving into we're kind of bouncing all over the place. We started by wanting to talk about what is consciousness. Now, I can give you a definition. Consciousness is an emergent property of having a brain.
Well,
and so would you say that it's different? And could you give me a definition that we can use without giving us a whole stack of books we need to read? Because one definition is functional, the other, not so much.
Okay. Consciousness always in its actual appearance, if I'm going to try to give a definition of this, which is very dangerous. If I'm going to try to do that, consciousness is something which always speaks and always is in reaction to more than what it could possibly give an account for. Consciousness is that which in its actual existence is answerable to things already that it cannot give physical account for. The moreness is what gives you consciousness.
Okay.
That's the idea.
Can I rephrase it?
You're nothing but a conglomerate of physical processes.
Whoa!
None of them have...
David, stop.
Okay.
I'm stopping the brakes right there.
Sure.
Otherwise, you are nothing but a conglomerate of physical processes. So what?
Yes.
If we are a conglomerate of processes, if all I am is a brain and a brainstem and a body and a gut, which bacteria, by the way, has a huge impact on everything about my consciousness. But regardless,
I'm with you.
To say, oh, well, you are nothing but this conglomerate of separate pieces. So what? Does that make it less true?
No, it certainly doesn't.
Should it scare us off?
No, it doesn't. But there is a strange thing that you're absolutely right.
And can I reformat? Can I reformulate your? I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying, and so I'd like to kind of parrot back to you what I got from what you said. That way, we're still operating with the same definitions. It appears that what you're saying is there's a ghost in the machine, right? That our consciousness is something that is not accounted for by brain activity, body activity. That there's something separate and extra to which there is no other explanation but the existence of something like a soul?
I'm not, because that's a kind of substantive reduction, which I don't subscribe to.
Why not?
What I'm saying, because I'll give you an example, a metaphor. It would be like trying to explain the reason why I'm traveling to my daughter's wedding in terms of the mechanical functionings of the engine of the car I'm driving. Now, that's an absurdity. The fact is that we are not beings that exist on this, level of deterministic physical processes, because we are not things that are just caught in the matrix of stimulus and response. If that were so, if that were actually so, then there would be nothing there would be nothing that could bring me to any kind of consciousness of myself.
How did you come to that conclusion? So here's the thing.
This is the continental. The whole continental point is
David,
wrapped up in just this one.
David, what I'm trying to say here is what you've given is a very, very kind of. What I'm getting from this is you're saying we're just so much more than the sum of our parts.
It's qualia, basically.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Qualia. The qualia is something that is locked out of
sorry, I gave him more.
No, actually, that's wonderful because it's a teaching moment, and for people who are watching, that is qualia.
Yeah.
You have arguments of what does it mean to be a bat? Is a really famous piece.
Yeah, I know. Right. Yeah. You could have a bat, and you could have everything that you know. You would have a perfect neuroscience of how a bat could.
But you wouldn't know what it means
to
be a bat.
But you wouldn't know what it was because you wouldn't have the qualia.
Who cares?
The reason why is because
David, but who cares? I mean, so if the thing is, if we can map all of those things out and there's nothing left over, then there's nothing to account for. And until such time as you can show that there's extra to account for, then we're going to use Occam's razor to cut that off and go, you know what? What is enough?
No,
what is necessary is already accounted for. You go back to I know it's fictional, right? Laplace saying, I have no need of that hypothesis. Mm-hmm. I have no need of the extra because it's not necessary.
I'm familiar with all of this stuff here.
Sure.
What you're talking about here is you're saying that we could have this exhaustive aggregate of information that would exhaust it to such an extent that it would leave no remainder.
Sure.
Now, what we're saying on this side of it is saying, no, there is a remainder. There's one that is perpetually hidden from science.
What is that?
And that thing is the first-person subjectivity that measures all things and is that epistemic standard by which all transcendentals can come into being. Now, that's a big word salad.
Hold on. No, David, we're following you, but we're also in a format where we're trying to pace the show and then get to other callers as well. So that's why we're trying to direct the conversation. We're not trying to be rude or anything, but we're trying to get to some good conversation. And V Woods.
My question is, if it's perpetually hidden, if it's perpetually hidden from science, how do you know it exists?
Because it is felt the same way that pains or any kind.
We can measure pain.
Right.
Hold on, we can measure pain, and we can show that without a central nervous system, you don't have pain. So, no, you cannot use pain as an example. That is actually an example in the opposite direction. We can account for pain. Try again.
But that's not the argument I'm making. I'm asking you to account for the angst and your fear. I'm asking you to account for that, and you cannot rely on physical processes alone. That's the argument.
Okay, so if you're saying I cannot experience the brain state of another or another creature or something like that, has nothing to do with existence. It has everything to do with your subjective take on it. But I don't need to understand everyone else's subjective take to be able to. Go ahead.
No, I think you're getting it. I think you're getting it mixed up. I think what you meant to say that it has nothing to do with God and everything to do with existence.
No,
and I would agree with you on that.
No, it's okay. It's okay, because you can be an atheist and take this position.
Yes, that's true.
And so what I'm saying is it has nothing to do with God. It has everything to do with actual things that exist in the real world. Now, we can argue about things that exist in hypothetical worlds, but that doesn't mean that it has any actual value in the world that we're in. I understand that you have a subjective view of the world that I'm never going to experience, right? But we could talk about the Matrix.
No, because what actually is the thing which is giving, you brought up value. What actually is possibly imbuing value is not only, the hypothetical idea that God is here and somehow invests ethical understanding and is the basis on which morality and all that crap comes into existence.
Sure, I like all that crap. It says you're a theist.
Oh yeah.
Are you a religious person?
I kind of am, but that doesn't, I'm not precluded from swearing and saying this is a bunch of bullshit over here and what this guy's saying is crap.
All right, well, I'm totally cool with that. But
my background and what I argue for is not for religion. I don't even make arguments for God because of the reasons that I've already laid out. Sure. However, there are mystical there are representatives of the mystical tradition all the way up, and Sam Harris, that goofball, is into some of this stuff. I think he screws it up, and so does Jordan Peterson. But there are skeptical forms of mysticism that escape the strictures of science.
No, it doesn't.
Modern Western science, because it itself.
It doesn't, though, David.
Philosophical position. Well, a lot of people are not aware of the arguments that go on, for instance, between Karl Popper and Thomas Kuhn on exactly what is science. Are we
okay, David?
Are we talking in terms of falsifiability?
Right, David.
Are we using as a rubric a kind of
hey, David.
What's the term I'm looking here?
Brother.
Yes.
I can have this conversation for 20 hours, but we're falling.
Probably.
We're going wide. Shoot me an email, mail@talkheathen.com. I want to continue this conversation.
Hey, give me your email and I will do that.
Mail@talkheathen.com. This may have absolutely glazed a lot of people over, but I love this. So I'm glad that you called in, and I do want to hold. I also want to hold your feet to the fire and go. If you don't feel like you can argue for your theism, why do you accept it? But I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger. I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger. No, Dave. I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger. Shoot me a mail, mail@talkheathen.com.
I can do that. I can argue my theism. But
oh, dear, sweet baby Jesus. This is going to be a good conversation. Give me a call. I'll talk to you later. Okay, buddy?
All right, cool, man. See ya.
Thank you.